My name is Phoenix, and I thought buying my childhood home was the perfect surprise for my parents. Standing in the driveway with the deed in my hands, I watched my mother's face turn white as she whispered the words that would destroy everything I believed about family loyalty. "We already promised this house to your sister Emma and her husband. They were counting on it for their 3 kids." The betrayal cut deeper than any knife could. What I discovered next about my family's lies would change everything forever. Hey everyone! Before we dive into this family drama that will blow your mind, I want to know, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below. If this story of family betrayal and the sweet revenge that followed hits close to home, smash that like button and subscribe, because trust me, you will not believe how this unfolds. The lies my family told and the justice that finally came will leave you speechless. Now let me tell you exactly how my perfect surprise became the beginning of a war that exposed decades of family secrets. Growing up in small-town Nebraska, I always felt like the overlooked middle child. Emma was the golden daughter, married young, produced 3 grandchildren immediately, and somehow became the center of my parents' universe. Meanwhile, I worked 2 jobs through college, graduated debt-free, and spent the last 8 years building my career as a financial analyst in Denver. Every family gathering felt like a celebration of Emma's life, while my achievements barely earned a nod. When I heard through my cousin Marcus that my childhood home might go on the market, my heart raced with possibility. That yellow Victorian house with the wraparound porch held every good memory I had of feeling loved and secure. Dad had always said it would stay in the family, and I desperately wanted to be the one to preserve those memories. I contacted the realtor directly and discovered my parents had listed it quietly, hoping to avoid a bidding war in our tight housing market. The asking price was $300,000. Steep for our area, but fair for the renovated Victorian. I had saved meticulously for years, living in a tiny apartment and driving a 10-year-old Honda, specifically dreaming of owning property. This felt like destiny. I made a cash offer immediately, $5,000 over asking price. The realtor seemed surprised by my eagerness and asked twice if I was certain about proceeding without inspections or contingencies. I signed every document with trembling hands, imagining my parents' joy when I revealed that their daughter had saved the family home. The closing happened on a Friday afternoon in October. I drove the 4 hours from Denver with butterflies in my stomach, planning the perfect reveal. I had even bought a bottle of champagne and made dinner reservations at their favorite restaurant. The deed felt heavy in my purse as I pulled into their driveway. Mom opened the door before I could knock, her face lighting up with genuine surprise. "Phoenix, what are you doing here? You did not call ahead." Dad emerged from his recliner, equally confused but pleased. They invited me in for coffee, chatting about work and my latest dating disasters, while I built up courage for my announcement. "I have something incredible to share with you both," I began, my voice shaking with excitement. "I know you have been worried about what would happen to the house, about keeping it in the family." Their expressions shifted subtly, a glance passing between them that I should have recognized as warning. I pulled out the deed with a flourish. "Surprise, I bought our house. You never have to worry about losing it, because it belongs to our family forever now." The silence stretched for an eternity. Mom's coffee cup rattled against the saucer as she set it down with shaking hands. Dad's face cycled through confusion, shock, and something that looked horrifyingly like panic. "Phoenix, honey," Mom's voice came out as barely a whisper. "We need to tell you something. We already promised this house to Emma and David. They have been planning to move in next month with the kids." The world tilted sideways. "What do you mean promised? You listed it for sale. I bought it legally." Dad ran his hands through his gray hair, a gesture I remembered from childhood when he was stressed about bills. "We told them they could have it. David lost his job 3 months ago, and they cannot afford their current mortgage. We were going to sell it to them for what we owed on it, about $100,000. My mind reeled with calculations. I had paid 3 times what they were planning to charge Emma. But you listed it publicly. The realtor never mentioned any family arrangement. We thought listing it publicly would help establish fair market value for tax purposes, Mom explained, wringing her hands. We never imagined someone would actually buy it before we could take it off the market. We certainly never thought that someone would be you. The betrayal hit me in waves. Not only had they planned to give Emma our childhood home for a fraction of its value, but they had never even considered offering it to me. I was their daughter too, yet I was apparently not worthy of the same consideration. Did you ever think to ask me if I wanted it? My voice cracked with hurt. I am your daughter too. I have the money. I have been saving for years, specifically hoping to buy property. Dad's defensive tone emerged. You live in Denver. You have your career there. Emma has roots here, and the kids would benefit from growing up in the same house where you girls were raised. So, my life matters less because I do not have children. My connection to this house means nothing because I chose career over marriage. The words came out harsher than I intended, but the pain was raw and overwhelming. Emma's car pulled into the driveway at that exact moment, as if summoned by some cosmic sense of drama. Through the window, I watched her unload her 3 kids while David grabbed what looked like measuring tape from their trunk. They were already planning renovations to my house. The front door burst open as 8-year-old Lily bounded in, followed by her younger brothers. Grandma, Daddy wants to measure my new bedroom, she announced, then noticed me sitting rigidly on the couch. Hi, Aunt Phoenix. Are you here to see our new house too? Emma appeared in the doorway, her pregnant belly prominent beneath her cardigan, David close behind, carrying architectural blueprints. The sight of those blueprints, detailed plans for modifying my childhood home, felt like a physical blow. Phoenix. Emma's face showed genuine surprise and delight. What brings you home? We were just finalizing room assignments for the move next month. The kids are so excited to finally have a big backyard and their own rooms. The innocence in her voice, the assumption that I would naturally be thrilled for her good fortune, made everything worse. She had no idea that I had just discovered their secret arrangement, that I now owned the house she considered already hers. David spread the blueprints across the coffee table without invitation. Look at these plans, Phoenix. We are converting your old bedroom into a nursery for the baby, and the boys will share the room that used to be the office. Lily gets the master bedroom upstairs because she needs space for all her art supplies. They were rewriting the geography of my memories, casually erasing my childhood to make room for their expanding family. The casualness of it, the assumption that I would celebrate this erasure, revealed just how little my feelings mattered to any of them. I stood abruptly, the deed still clutched in my trembling hands. Actually, there has been a change of plans. I own this house now. I bought it this afternoon. The blueprints fluttered to the floor as David's hands went slack. Emma's mouth fell open, her hand instinctively moving to protect her belly, as if I had physically threatened her. The children sensed the sudden tension and grew quiet, Lily moving closer to her mother's legs. You what? Emma's voice rose to a near shriek. That is impossible. Mom and Dad promised it to us. We have been planning this move for months. David already gave notice at his old job to take one closer to here. The room erupted in chaos as everyone spoke at once, accusations flying, children beginning to cry, and my parents frantically trying to mediate a situation they had created through their deception and favoritism. Standing in the center of that hurricane of family drama, holding the deed to the house that had just torn my family apart, I realized this was only the beginning of a much larger reckoning that had been decades in the making. The aftermath of my announcement sent shockwaves through the entire family network, faster than wildfire across prairie grass. Within hours of that catastrophic living room confrontation, my phone buzzed incessantly with calls from relatives I had not heard from in months, each demanding explanations for what they dramatically termed the house situation. Emma had immediately launched into full victim mode, calling every family member to paint me as the selfish sister who had deliberately sabotaged her family's future. According to her rapidly spreading narrative, I had somehow discovered their private arrangement and swooped in maliciously to steal their home out from under 3 innocent children and a pregnant mother. But Emma made one crucial mistake in her campaign of family manipulation. She called our grandmother Nana Rose, expecting sympathy and support. Nana Rose, however, was 86 years old, sharp as a blade, and had no patience for family drama built on lies and favoritism. "Emma, darling," Nana Rose told her during their phone call, which I learned about later from my cousin Marcus, "that house belongs to whoever purchased it legally. If your parents made promises they could not keep, that reflects poorly on their planning, not on Phoenix's character." This response apparently infuriated Emma, who made the fatal error of revealing far more than she intended. In her angry rant to Nana Rose, she let slip that this was not the first time our parents had given her financial advantages that they had hidden from me. Marcus called me that evening, his voice tight with anger. "Phoenix, you need to know what Emma accidentally revealed to Nana Rose. This house thing, it is just the tip of the iceberg." My stomach dropped as Marcus explained what he had learned. When Emma and David had bought their current house 5 years ago, they had not qualified for the mortgage on their own. My parents had co-signed the loan and provided a $50,000 down payment, telling the family that the young couple had saved the money themselves through careful budgeting. When Emma's first child was born, my parents had set up education funds for all 3 grandchildren, contributing $500 monthly to each account. They had never established similar accounts for any future children I might have, nor had they offered to help with my student loans or career development. The previous Christmas, when David's previous job had reduced his hours, my parents had quietly paid the family's mortgage for 4 months to prevent foreclosure. Emma had accepted this help while posting social media photos of expensive family vacations and new furniture purchases, never acknowledging the financial support that made their lifestyle possible. "Your parents have given them over $150,000 in direct support over the past 5 years, Marcus calculated grimly. "And they hid every penny of it from you while lecturing the rest of us about Emma and David's impressive financial responsibility and work ethic." The pattern became sickeningly clear. My parents had systematically favored Emma with substantial financial support, while allowing me to struggle through college debt, entry-level salaries, and the challenges of building an independent life. Worse, they had crafted a family narrative that celebrated Emma's success as entirely self-made, while portraying my achievements as somehow less meaningful because I had not yet married or produced children. I realized that my surprise purchase had accidentally exposed a web of family lies and financial favoritism that ran much deeper than one house. The deed in my hands represented more than property ownership. It was evidence of a pattern of deception that had shaped years of family dynamics. Armed with this new information, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of quietly transferring the house to Emma to keep peace, I would demand complete financial transparency from my parents and insist on equitable treatment moving forward. The next morning, I drove back to my parents' house with a folder full of printed documentation. I had spent the night researching property records, loan information, and legal precedents. If my family wanted to play games with money and property, I would ensure everyone understood the actual rules. Mom answered the door looking exhausted, her eyes red from crying. "Phoenix, honey, we need to figure out how to resolve this situation. Emma is devastated, and the children keep asking why they cannot move to the new house." "We absolutely need to resolve this," I agreed, stepping into the living room where Dad sat surrounded by financial documents. "But first, we need to discuss some other financial arrangements that I recently learned about." Dad's face went pale as I opened my folder. Marcus told me about the down payment, help, the mortgage assistance, and the education funds. I want to see complete documentation of every dollar you have given Emma and David over the past 5 years. Phoenix, that is none of your business, Dad said defensively. How we help our children is our private decision. It became my business the moment you tried to give away a $300,000 house for $100,000 to the same daughter you have already given over $150,000 to, I replied calmly. It became my business when I discovered that your private decisions consistently favor one child while completely excluding the other. Mom sank into her chair, the weight of their exposed favoritism finally hitting her. We never meant for you to feel excluded. Emma needed more help because she has children and David's job situation has been unstable. So you decided I needed less help because I made responsible choices about career and family planning? I asked. You punished me for being financially stable by excluding me from family financial support entirely. The documentation I spread across their coffee table told a stark story of systematic favoritism disguised as emergency assistance. Every loan, every gift, every hidden subsidy had been framed as temporary help during difficult times. But the pattern revealed intentional, ongoing financial preference for Emma's family. Here is what is going to happen, I announced, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I am keeping the house. If you want to maintain a relationship with me, you will acknowledge publicly to the entire family that you provided Emma with substantial financial assistance while providing me with none. You will also establish an education fund for any future children I may have, matching the amounts you have already contributed to Emma's children. Dad's face flushed red with anger. You cannot blackmail us into financial arrangements, Phoenix. We are your parents, not your business partners. You are absolutely right, I agreed. Parents do not typically hide major financial decisions from half their children or create secret arrangements that benefit only one family branch. Business partners, however, do expect transparency and equitable treatment. Mom began crying softly. This is tearing our family apart. Cannot we find a compromise that works for everyone? The family was already torn apart by years of hidden favoritism. I replied gently but firmly. I am just making this damage visible instead of allowing it to continue in secret. Emma's car pulled into the driveway again and through the window. I could see David in the passenger seat, his face set in grim determination. They had clearly come prepared for battle, expecting to pressure me into reversing my purchase through emotional manipulation and family guilt. But I was done being the accommodating daughter who quietly accepted less so that Emma could have more. The house deed in my possession represented more than property ownership. It was proof that I had finally stopped participating in a family system designed to diminish my value while elevating hers. As Emma and David approached the front door, I gathered my documentation and prepared for the conversation that would either force my family to acknowledge their years of deception or permanently fracture relationships that had been built on lies and favoritism. The truth was finally exposed, but the real battle for justice and equitable treatment was just beginning. Emma stormed through the front door like a woman possessed, David trailing behind with the defeated posture of someone who had already lost a fight he was not prepared for. Behind them, I was surprised to see my Aunt Linda Mom's younger sister carrying a thick manila folder that immediately caught my attention. Phoenix! Emma's voice shook with barely controlled fury. This has gone far enough. You are destroying our family over a house that you do not even need. You have a perfectly good apartment in Denver. We have 3 children who need stability and space to grow. What I need or do not need is not your decision to make, I replied calmly, though my heart was racing. What I find interesting is how quickly this became about what I supposedly owe you, rather than about the years of hidden financial support you received while I was completely excluded from family assistance. David stepped forward, his jaw tight with frustration. Look, Phoenix, we did not ask for your parents to help us. They offered because they saw we were struggling. That does not make us villains, and it does not give you the right to take away our children's future home. Aunt Linda had been unusually quiet during this exchange, but now she cleared her throat pointedly. Actually, David, that is not entirely accurate. And Phoenix, there are some things about this family's financial arrangements that you still do not know. Everyone turned toward Linda, whose presence suddenly felt much more significant than a supportive relative dropping by during family drama. She set her manila folder on the coffee table with the deliberate weight of someone playing a trump card. I came here today because Marcus called me last night with some very interesting information about family finances, Linda announced. As the family's unofficial record keeper and the person who helped your parents set up their estate planning, I have documentation that I think everyone needs to see. Mom's face went white. Linda, family financial information is private. This is not your business. It became my business when you asked me to help hide assets and manipulate inheritance structures to favor one child over another, Linda replied sharply. And it became everyone's business when your secret arrangements started destroying family relationships. Linda opened her folder and began spreading documents across the coffee table like a detective presenting evidence. Bank statements, loan applications, trust fund documents, and property transfers created a paper trail that told a story none of us had fully understood. Your parents established a family trust fund 10 years ago, Linda explained, looking directly at me. The original purpose was to ensure both daughters would receive equal inheritance and support. However, over the past 5 years, they have systematically borrowed against the trust to provide undocumented loans to Emma and David. My stomach dropped as Linda pointed to highlighted figures on the bank statements. The numbers were staggering. Beyond the down payment assistance and mortgage help that Marcus had discovered, there were personal loans for David's failed business venture, credit card debt payments, car loan assistance, and medical bill coverage. The total amount taken from the family trust to support Emma's family is $237,000, Linda announced. This money was intended to provide equal inheritance for both daughters. Instead, it has been given exclusively to one daughter, while the other remained completely unaware of its existence. Emma's face cycled through shock, embarrassment, and defensive anger. We paid back some of those loans, and we never asked them to take money from Phoenix's inheritance. We did not even know there was an inheritance. You paid back $18,000 over 5 years, Linda corrected grimly. And you absolutely knew there was family money available because you called your mother whenever you needed financial help, and she always found a way to provide it. David slumped into a chair, the magnitude of their debt finally hitting him. We thought they were just helping us get through rough patches. We did not realize it was coming from a specific fund or affecting Phoenix's future inheritance. The house situation makes much more sense now, I said slowly, pieces clicking together. You are not just giving Emma a below-market deal on the house. You are trying to transfer ownership of a $300,000 asset for $100,000 to offset the fact that you had already given her more than double her intended inheritance. Mom finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. We were trying to balance things out. We thought if Emma owned the house for what we owed on it, and you kept the trust fund money, it would be approximately equal. Except you never told Phoenix about the trust fund, Aunt Linda pointed out sharply. So your plan was to give Emma a house and keep Phoenix completely ignorant of her own inheritance until after your deaths. How exactly was that fair or balanced? The scope of the deception was breathtaking. Not only had my parents systematically favored Emma with financial support, but they had been planning to manipulate asset distribution to hide their favoritism permanently. If I had not accidentally stumbled into the house purchase, I might never have discovered that I was entitled to family money that had been secretly redistributed to my sister. But Linda was not finished with her revelations. There is one more thing that everyone needs to understand. The original family trust was funded partially by your grandmother Rose's estate planning. She contributed $100,000 specifically to ensure both granddaughters would receive equal family support. My heart clenched as I realized Nana Rose had been trying to provide for both Emma and me equally. But her generous intention had been perverted into a system that benefited only one granddaughter, while excluding the other entirely. Nana Rose knows about the trust fund, I asked. She knows about the original trust, Linda confirmed. But she does not know about the unauthorized borrowing or the plan to hide asset distribution from you. When Marcus told her about the house situation yesterday, she asked me to investigate the family's financial arrangements. What I discovered made her furious enough to drive here herself, but I convinced her to let me handle the initial confrontation. Emma's defensive anger finally cracked, replaced by what looked like genuine shame. We never meant for it to go this far. When David lost his job, and then when I got pregnant again, it felt like everything was falling apart. Mom and Dad offered to help, and we were so grateful. We never thought about Phoenix's share, or questioned where the money was coming from. But you also never mentioned the help to Phoenix, David added quietly. When she would talk about student loan payments or saving for a house down payment, we never told her that our financial success was partly due to family support that she was not receiving. The room fell silent as the full scope of the deception settled over everyone. This was not just about a house, or even about money. It was about a family system that had operated in secret, creating false narratives about success and responsibility while systematically favoring one child over another. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Nana Rose is on her way. She wants a family meeting with everyone present, including the cousins. She says it is time for complete transparency about family money and inheritance. Linda smiled grimly as she read the same message on her phone. Your grandmother is not pleased about the financial manipulation and secret keeping. She wants all family members to understand exactly how trust funds and inheritance are supposed to work, and she wants accountability for the money that was taken without proper authorization. Emma looked panicked. What does that mean for us? Are we going to owe back money that we do not have? Will this affect the kids' education funds? That depends on how honest everyone is willing to be and how committed this family is to actual fairness moving forward, Linda replied. But the days of secret loans and hidden favoritism are over. From now on, all family financial decisions will be transparent and documented. As car doors slammed outside, indicating the arrival of more family members for Nana Rose's impromptu family meeting, I realized that my house purchase had triggered something much larger than a property dispute. I had accidentally exposed a web of financial deception that threatened to reshape our entire family's understanding of fairness, honesty, and love. The alliance building had begun, but I was no longer sure who would be fighting on which side when all the secrets were finally revealed and accountability became unavoidable. Nana Rose arrived like a general preparing for battle, her silver hair perfectly styled despite the emergency nature of her visit. At 86, she still commanded respect from every family member, and watching her take charge of our living room felt like witnessing a masterclass in authority and dignity. Marcus had driven her over and stayed to provide moral support, along with my cousins Jenny and Tom, Linda's children, who had always been closer to me than Emma's immediate circle. The house felt crowded with the weight of family politics and long-buried resentments finally rising to the surface. Now then, Nana Rose began settling into Dad's recliner as if it were a throne. I understand there has been some confusion about money and property in this family. Linda has explained the trust fund situation, and I want everyone to understand how disappointed I am in the secrecy and favoritism that has been happening under my nose. She looked directly at my parents, her blue eyes steely with disapproval. When I contributed to that trust fund, I specifically requested that both granddaughters be informed of its existence and that any distributions be documented and equitable. Instead, I discover that you have been operating a secret lending operation that benefits only one child while keeping the other completely ignorant of family resources. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Mom, we were trying to help Emma during difficult times. We always planned to balance things out eventually. By secretly transferring a house worth 3 times its sale price, Nana Rose's voice could have cut glass. That is not balancing, Robert. That is continued favoritism disguised as problem-solving. Emma had been unusually quiet throughout Nana Rose's arrival, but now she stepped forward with what I recognized as her most persuasive voice, the one she used when she needed to charm her way out of consequences. Nana Rose, I think there has been some misunderstanding about our financial situation. Emma began, her hand resting protectively on her pregnant belly. David and I have always been grateful for family support, but we never demanded anything or tried to take advantage of anyone's generosity. I watched in fascination as Emma deployed what I had privately termed her victim narrative strategy, acknowledging some responsibility while repositioning herself as someone who had been more acted upon than acting. When David lost his job, we were desperate. Emma continued, tears beginning to form in her eyes. We have 3 children depending on us and another baby coming. When Mom and Dad offered to help, we saw it as temporary assistance until we could get back on our feet. We had no idea it was affecting Phoenix's inheritance or creating family problems. Nana Rose listened to this explanation with the patience of someone who had heard many similar stories over 8 decades of family experience. When Emma finished, she nodded thoughtfully. Emma, dear, I understand that you were grateful for help during difficult times, Nana Rose said gently. But I am curious about something. Linda mentioned that some of the family trust money went toward paying off credit card debt. Can you help me understand how that debt accumulated during the same period when you were receiving mortgage assistance and other family support? Emma's confident expression flickered slightly, but she recovered quickly. We had some unexpected expenses with the children's medical needs and David's job transition. Sometimes things pile up faster than you can manage them, even when you are being careful with money. Marcus, who had been quietly reviewing some of Linda's documentation, looked up with a puzzled expression. Emma, I am looking at these credit card statements, and there are some interesting charges here. A 7-day Caribbean cruise in January purchased 2 weeks after your parents paid your mortgage because David's job cut his hours. The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Emma's face flushed as she realized that the financial documentation Linda had brought included more detailed information than anyone had initially revealed. We needed that vacation, Emma said defensively. David was dealing with depression from his job situation, and the whole family was under stress. Mom and Dad agreed that sometimes you have to invest in mental health and family bonding. With money from Phoenix's inheritance? Jenny asked incredulously. She had been looking over Marcus's shoulder at the credit card statements. Emma, there are charges here for expensive restaurants, clothing purchases, and home decorating items all during months when you were receiving family assistance for basic living expenses. I felt sick as the scope of Emma's financial manipulation became clear. She had not just been receiving emergency assistance during genuine crises. She had been treating family trust money like a personal expense account while positioning herself as a struggling mother who needed help with basic survival. But what happened next shocked me more than any financial revelation could have. Nana Rose, who I had expected to be furious with Emma's deceptive spending instead, turned toward me with the expression I had never seen before. Phoenix, dear, Nana Rose said slowly. I think there is something we need to discuss about your recent house purchase. While I understand your desire to preserve family property, I am concerned about the impulsive nature of your decision and the impact on your sister's children. My world tilted sideways. After everything that had been revealed about Emma's deception and my parents' favoritism, Nana Rose was criticizing me for buying the house. You have a successful career and financial stability. Nana Rose continued, her voice taking on a lecturing tone I had never heard directed at me before. Emma has 3 children and another baby coming. Perhaps the mature response would be to find a compromise that considers the needs of the most vulnerable family members. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Nana Rose, who I had counted on as my ally in demanding family fairness, was now suggesting that I should sacrifice my legal property ownership to accommodate Emma's poor financial decisions and my parents' favoritism. Marcus looked as shocked as I felt. Nana Rose Phoenix did not know about any of the family arrangements when she bought the house. She paid full market value for property that her parents had secretly promised to sell below market to Emma. How is Phoenix responsible for fixing a situation created by other people's deception? Family is about more than legal ownership and market values, Nana Rose replied firmly. Phoenix has the luxury of thinking about property as an investment. Emma needs to think about property as shelter for her children. Those are very different situations that require different considerations. I stared at my grandmother, realizing that her criticism was not really about the house. It was about a deeper family expectation that I, as the successful unmarried daughter, should naturally sacrifice my interests to support Emma's role as the struggling mother. So let me understand this, I said slowly, my voice shaking with hurt and anger. Emma can spend trust fund money on vacations and luxury purchases while claiming she needs emergency assistance for basic expenses, and that is understandable because she has children. But I should give up property I purchased legally because thinking about my own financial interests is somehow selfish. That is not what I said, Phoenix, Nana Rose replied, but her tone suggested that was exactly what she meant. Emma seized on this unexpected support from our grandmother. Phoenix, I know you are hurt about the financial information, and I understand why you are upset, but we can work together to find a solution that helps everyone. Maybe you could rent the house to us below market value, or we could work out a payment plan that lets us eventually buy it from you. The audacity was breathtaking. Even after being exposed for deceptive spending and secret financial manipulation, Emma was still positioning herself as the reasonable party seeking compromise while I was being portrayed as the selfish sister who refused to prioritize children's needs over property ownership. Looking around the room, I realized that my strongest ally had just revealed herself to be another voice for the family status quo that consistently asked me to sacrifice more so that Emma could have everything she wanted. The justice I had thought was finally coming felt further away than ever. The alliance I had counted on was crumbling, and I was once again alone in fighting for fairness in a family system designed to favor everyone except me. The silence that followed Emma's suggestion felt suffocating. I looked around the room at faces that had suddenly become alien to me. My own grandmother, the woman I had respected most in the world, was asking me to subsidize the very sister who had been secretly draining family resources while I struggled to build my life independently. You want me to rent my house below market value to the sister who spent trust fund money on Caribbean cruises while claiming she needed help with basic expenses? I asked, my voice barely controlled. You want me to create a payment plan for someone who owes the family over $200,000 and has never made substantial effort to repay it? Tom Linda's son had been quietly reading through more of the financial documents. He looked up with an expression of disbelief. There is more here that everyone needs to see. Emma, did you know that your parents took out a second mortgage on their own house to cover some of your expenses last year? Dad's face went ashen. This was apparently information that even he had not intended to become public. Tom, that is private family business. Nothing is private anymore, Dad, Tom replied grimly. Not when family members are making financial decisions that affect everyone without telling anyone what they are doing. Phoenix, did you know your parents now owe $60,000 more on their house because of loans they made to Emma and David? The hits kept coming. Not only had my parents drained the family trust to support Emma, but they had mortgaged their own financial security to continue the pattern of assistance. They were approaching retirement age with debt they had never planned for, all to maintain Emma's lifestyle and avoid asking her to face the consequences of her financial decisions. "This is exactly why families should not mix money and emotions," Marcus said angrily. "Phoenix bought a house legally with her own money, and somehow she is the villain." Meanwhile, Emma has been treating family resources like a personal ATM machine, and everyone wants to protect her from accountability. But Nana Rose was not backing down from her position. "Marcus, you are young and do not understand the complexities of family responsibility. Phoenix has choices that Emma does not have. Phoenix can rebuild her life anywhere, start over, make different decisions. Emma has commitments and responsibilities that require stability and community support." "What about Phoenix's commitments and responsibilities?" Jenny demanded, her voice rising with frustration. "What about her commitment to her own financial security and future? What about her responsibility to herself and any family she might want to start someday?" "Phoenix chose a path that prioritized career over family," Nana Rose replied, and those words hit me like a slap across the face. "Those choices come with trade-offs. You cannot have complete independence and also expect the same family support as someone who chose interdependence." The room erupted in angry voices as family members took sides, but I barely heard them. My grandmother had just told me that my life choices made me less worthy of family consideration. Because I had focused on education and career instead of early marriage and children, I was somehow less entitled to fairness, honesty, and equitable treatment. Emma seized on Nana Rose's support, her voice taking on the martyr tone that had manipulated family sympathy for years. "I never wanted this to divide our family. All I ever wanted was stability for my children and support during difficult times. If Phoenix cannot understand that family means sacrifice and compromise, then maybe she has chosen to prioritize other things over family relationships." The manipulation was masterful. Emma had repositioned herself as the family-focused daughter, making reasonable requests, while painting me as the selfish career woman who valued money over children's welfare. Even after being exposed for deceptive spending and secret financial manipulation, she had managed to become the victim of my unreasonable demands for honesty and fairness. David, emboldened by the support Emma was receiving, stepped forward with renewed confidence. "Look, Phoenix, we are willing to work with you. We can sign legal documents acknowledging our debt to the family trust and committing to repayment plans. We can pay you rent for the house at whatever rate seems fair. We can even help you find another property in the area if you want to stay involved with family." "What you cannot do," I said quietly, "is acknowledge that you built your entire adult life on family financial support that you hid from me while watching me struggle with student loans and saving challenges that family money could have easily resolved." "We did not hide anything," Emma protested. "We just did not talk about our private financial arrangements with extended family. That is normal and appropriate." "I am not extended family," I said, my voice breaking despite my efforts to stay calm. "I am your sister. When you accepted over $200,000 in family support, while I was completely excluded from family financial assistance, that was not privacy. That was systematic favoritism disguised as emergency help." But I could see that my arguments were falling on deaf ears. The family had chosen to rally around Emma's needs and frame my demands for honesty and accountability as unreasonable selfishness. Even my strongest supposed ally had abandoned me in favor of protecting the family member who required the most accommodation. As the evening wore on and various compromise proposals were offered, all of which required me to sacrifice legal ownership or financial benefit to resolve problems I had not created, I realized that this battle was far from over. The family meeting that I had hoped would bring justice and accountability had instead crystallized everyone's commitment to maintaining a system that consistently asked me to give more so that Emma could take more. Walking out of that house that night, still holding the deed that had started this whole revelation, I understood that my real fight was just beginning. The allies I had counted on had revealed their true loyalties, and if I wanted justice and fair treatment, I was going to have to fight for it alone against a family system that preferred comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. 3 days after the devastating family meeting, I sat in my Denver apartment, staring at legal documents and financial records spread across my kitchen table like pieces of a complex puzzle. The betrayal by Nana Rose had shaken me more than I wanted to admit, but it had also clarified something important. If I wanted justice in this situation, I could not rely on family loyalty or emotional appeals. My phone rang early Tuesday morning. The caller ID showed a number I did not recognize, but when I answered, the voice was familiar. "Phoenix, this is Rebecca Martinez. I am Linda's friend who works in estate law. Linda asked me to review the trust fund documentation, and I need to meet with you immediately. What I discovered could change everything about your family's situation." Within an hour, Rebecca sat across from me in a downtown Denver coffee shop, a thick legal folder between us. She was a small woman with intense dark eyes and the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who had seen every type of family financial manipulation imaginable. "Your Aunt Linda was smart to bring this to legal attention," Rebecca began, opening her folder. "What your parents did with the family trust fund was not just morally questionable. It was legally problematic and possibly criminal." My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. "Criminal?" Rebecca pulled out highlighted documents. "Your grandmother established that trust with specific legal parameters. Distributions required documented need co-trustee approval and beneficiary notification. Your parents violated every single one of those requirements when they used trust money to support Emma without telling you." She spread out trust documents that showed clear legal language requiring both beneficiaries to be informed of any distributions over $5,000. Every loan to Emma had exceeded that threshold, yet I had never received any notification or been asked for approval as a co-beneficiary. "Furthermore," Rebecca continued, "some of the money taken from the trust was used for purposes that clearly violate the trust's intended function. Vacation expenses, luxury purchases, and debt consolidation are not qualified distributions under the trust terms. Your parents essentially committed trust fund fraud." The magnitude of this revelation stunned me. What does that mean in practical terms? "It means Emma and David are legally required to repay every penny they received plus interest and penalties," Rebecca explained. "It also means your parents could face legal consequences for breach of fiduciary duty. And most importantly for your situation, it means you have legal grounds to demand complete financial restitution before any family property transfers or inheritance discussions can proceed." Rebecca handed me another document. "I also researched the house sale. Since your parents were actively violating trust terms when they listed the property, and since they were planning to use the below-market sale to further manipulate asset distribution, you could argue that their intended sale to Emma would have constituted additional trust fraud. So my purchase was not just legal, it was actually preventing ongoing financial fraud." "Exactly. You accidentally stopped your parents from using property manipulation to hide their trust fund violations." Rebecca leaned forward intensely. "Phoenix, you have a rock-solid legal case for demanding full restitution and preventing any further financial manipulation. The question is whether you want to pursue legal action against your own family." That question haunted me for the rest of the week. I loved my family despite their flaws, and the idea of taking legal action against my parents felt overwhelming. But I also realized that legal pressure might be the only thing that could force accountability and honest change. My decision was made for me on Friday afternoon when Marcus called with disturbing news. "Phoenix, you need to know what happened at Mom and Dad's house yesterday. Emma and David met with them privately, and I think they are planning something that you should be aware of." According to Marcus, Emma had convinced my parents to consider bankruptcy as a way to escape their debt obligations and avoid repaying the trust fund money. The plan apparently involved transferring remaining family assets to Emma's name before filing bankruptcy, effectively protecting family wealth while eliminating the debt she had created. They are also talking about having you declared mentally incompetent to make financial decisions, Marcus added grimly. Emma convinced them that your house purchase was evidence of unstable judgment, and she wants to petition for family conservatorship over your finances. The audacity was breathtaking. After being exposed for massive financial fraud and deception, Emma was now trying to have me declared mentally incompetent so she could gain control of my assets and avoid accountability for her actions. Marcus, I need you to document everything they are planning. Get recordings if possible. And I need you to contact Rebecca Martinez for me. It is time to make this a legal matter instead of a family matter. That evening, I called Rebecca and explained Emma's apparent plans for bankruptcy fraud and conservatorship manipulation. Her response was immediate and fierce. Phoenix, your sister just escalated this from a family dispute to potential criminal fraud. Transferring assets before bankruptcy to avoid debt obligations is illegal. Attempting to gain conservatorship over a competent adult's finances for personal benefit is abuse of legal process. We need to act quickly to protect you and to stop these plans before they go further. Rebecca's next suggestion surprised me. I want to bring in my colleague, James Chen, who specializes in financial elder abuse and family fraud cases. What your family is attempting falls directly into his expertise, and he has experience dealing with these exact manipulation tactics. When I met James Chen the following Monday, I immediately understood why Rebecca had recommended him. He was calm, methodical, and had clearly seen every variation of family financial manipulation. More importantly, he was angry about what my family had attempted. Phoenix, what you are describing is a textbook case of family financial abuse, James explained. Your parents enabled Emma's manipulation, then tried to hide it through property fraud, and now they are planning bankruptcy fraud and conservatorship abuse to avoid consequences. This level of systematic financial manipulation requires serious legal intervention. James laid out a comprehensive legal strategy that would not only protect me from Emma's conservatorship plans, but would also force complete financial accountability and restitution. More importantly, he explained how legal pressure could actually protect my parents from the financial ruin that Emma's manipulation had created. Your parents are victims too, in a way, James noted. Emma manipulated their love for their grandchildren to extract money they could not afford to give. Now she is planning to leave them financially destroyed through bankruptcy while she protects the assets she gained through fraud. Legal intervention can actually save your parents from Emma's continued manipulation. For the first time since this entire situation began, I felt like I had an ally who understood both the emotional complexity and the legal realities of my situation. James and Rebecca were not asking me to sacrifice my interests for family peace. They were showing me how legal accountability could actually restore family fairness and protect everyone from Emma's continued financial manipulation. The evidence was overwhelming, the legal strategy was clear, and I finally had advocates who understood that justice was not the same thing as family accommodation. The real battle for accountability was about to begin, but this time I would not be fighting alone. The legal action moved faster than anyone in my family had anticipated. Within 2 weeks of retaining James and Rebecca, we had filed injunctions preventing the asset transfers Emma had planned, blocked the bankruptcy fraud scheme, and initiated trust fund fraud proceedings that would require complete financial accountability. Emma's attempt to have me declared mentally incompetent backfired spectacularly when the court-appointed psychologist found me completely competent and noted that my house purchase showed excellent financial planning and decisive action to preserve family assets. The psychologist's report actually raised questions about Emma's financial judgment and potential manipulation of elderly parents. The first family meeting after legal action began was unlike anything I had ever experienced. Instead of emotional manipulation and guilt tactics, everything was documented, recorded, and overseen by court-appointed mediators who had no tolerance for the drama and favoritism that had shaped years of family interactions. Emma arrived with her own attorney, but it quickly became clear that her legal position was indefensible. The trust fund, documentation, credit card records, and property transfer attempts created an undeniable pattern of systematic fraud that no amount of emotional appeals about struggling mothers could overcome. The court requires complete restitution of all improperly distributed trust funds, plus interest and legal fees, the mediator announced. Ms. Emma Bradley and Mr. David Bradley are jointly responsible for repayment of $237,000 plus accrued interest, totaling approximately $268,000. Emma's face went white as the reality of her financial obligations hit her. We do not have that money. How are we supposed to pay back that amount with 3 children and David's employment situation? The same way Phoenix would have had to pay her student loans and build her financial life without family assistance, Rebecca replied calmly. Through budgeting, sacrifice, and personal responsibility. The court had also discovered Emma's vacation spending and luxury purchases during periods of claimed financial emergency. The mediator addressed this directly. Ms. Bradley, the court finds that you deliberately misrepresented your financial situation to extract money from family resources while spending trust funds on discretionary expenses. This pattern of behavior demonstrates intentional fraud rather than emergency assistance. David, who had been quietly reviewing the restitution requirements, finally spoke up. What happens if we cannot pay this back? We have a mortgage, children's expenses, and another baby coming. James answered matter-of-factly. Then you will need to liquidate assets, modify your lifestyle, and establish payment plans, just like any other debtor. The court does not provide special accommodation for fraud, simply because the victims are family members. But the most satisfying moment came when the mediator addressed my parents' role in the financial manipulation. Mr. and Mrs. Williams, the court finds that you violated your fiduciary duty as trust administrators and enabled fraud through deliberate deception of one beneficiary. You are required to restore the trust to its original state and establish oversight to prevent future violations. Mom had been crying quietly throughout the proceedings, but now she spoke through her tears. We never meant for this to become a legal matter. We were just trying to help Emma during difficult times. Helping one child by secretly stealing from another child's inheritance is not parenting, the mediator replied firmly. It is favoritism that enabled fraud. The court requires you to acknowledge this publicly and commit to transparent, equitable treatment of both daughters moving forward. The legal proceedings also revealed information that stunned everyone, including me. Emma had not just been receiving family financial support, she had been actively preventing me from learning about available family resources. The investigation discovered that she had intercepted several communications from my parents about education fund contributions and family financial planning, ensuring that I remained ignorant of support that was supposedly available to both daughters. Phoenix, James explained privately during a break, Emma deliberately kept you from knowing about family money because she understood that informed beneficiaries would demand equitable treatment. Her financial manipulation required your ignorance to continue. This revelation transformed my understanding of the entire situation. Emma had not just been a passive recipient of family favoritism. She had been an active architect of the system that excluded me from family financial support while maximizing her own benefits. The final court order was comprehensive and satisfying. Emma and David were required to repay the trust fund money through asset liquidation and 5-year payment plan. They had to sell their current house, downsize their lifestyle, and submit monthly financial reports until full restitution was complete. My parents were required to attend financial counseling about appropriate family monetary boundaries and to provide me with complete documentation of all family financial arrangements. The trust fund was restructured with independent oversight to prevent future manipulation. Most importantly, the court ordered that any future family financial assistance must be documented, approved by both beneficiaries, and distributed equitably. The days of secret favoritism and hidden financial manipulation were legally over. Standing in my childhood home 6 months later, I felt a complex mix of emotions. The legal battle had restored financial justice and forced family accountability, but it had also permanently changed family relationships. Emma barely spoke to me, still resentful about having to face consequences for her financial fraud. My parents were slowly rebuilding trust, but the ease and warmth of our previous relationship would never fully return. But I had also discovered something unexpected during this process. The family I chose, Marcus, Jenny, Tom, Linda, and the legal professionals who had supported my fight for justice, provided more genuine love and support than the biological family relationships that had been built on lies and favoritism. Nana Rose, surprisingly, had become one of my strongest supporters once the legal evidence made Emma's manipulation undeniable. "I was wrong to ask you to sacrifice for family peace," she admitted during one of our private conversations. "Peace built on injustice is not real peace, it is just comfortable dishonesty." The house itself had become something different than I originally planned. Instead of a nostalgic family preservation project, it became my sanctuary and headquarters for building the life I actually wanted, rather than the life my family expected me to accept. I used part of the trust fund money that was returned to me to establish education funds for any future children I might have. But I also used some of it to start a nonprofit organization that provides financial literacy, education, and legal support for family members experiencing financial manipulation and fraud. The work felt meaningful in a way that my corporate job never had, and it connected me with other women who had discovered that family love and family manipulation could coexist in destructive ways that required legal intervention to resolve. Looking back on this entire experience, I realized that buying my childhood home had accidentally saved me from a lifetime of financial fraud and family manipulation that would have continued until my parents' deaths, when I would have finally discovered that my inheritance had been secretly redistributed years earlier. The justice that finally came was not just about money or property. It was about establishing boundaries that required my family to treat me with the same honesty and consideration they automatically provided to Emma. It was about refusing to accept less so that someone else could have more. Most importantly, it was about learning that real family relationships are built on truth, fairness, and mutual respect, not on sacrifice, accommodation, and comfortable lies that benefit some family members at the expense of others. Have you ever discovered that your family was treating you unfairly while favoring another sibling? Did you fight for justice even when it meant challenging people you loved? How do you balance family loyalty with demanding fair treatment? I would love to hear your stories and thoughts in the comments below. If this story of family financial fraud and the sweet taste of legal justice resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life family drama stories. Share this video with anyone who might be dealing with similar family manipulation. Sometimes knowing you are not alone makes all the difference. Thank you for watching my story and for supporting my journey toward family justice and personal empowerment. Remember, you deserve honesty and fairness in all your relationships, especially with family members who claim to love you. Never let anyone convince you that accepting less is the price of family harmony.